Let's get started on this basic problem right here. We're going to break this down into a couple levels of geometry. So when you start, what I want you to do is start building with some of the basic parts, and sometimes this just takes a little bit of visualization to think about, what shapes do I see. So I'm going to help you along with this one and kind of let you see how the process is, and then you'll start to pick this up on your own. So I'm not going to start by trying to draw this like a front view or right side or top view. I'm just going to look at the core elements or the geometry in this. So first thing I'm going to look at is this bottom piece. It's got a rectangle. It's 1 inch by 1/2 inch. So I'm going to draw this rectangle right here, and then I'm going to add this piece over here on top that's going to be 3/8 of an inch rectangle. Then I'm going to add the circle part, and then I'm going to come in here and add this to the end. So as we get moving through that, we're going to build each one of those components on an existing model or the existing surface that's on here. So I'm going to start a 2D sketch. I'm going to go ahead and just start on my XY plane and create the very first cube. So the very first thing I was going to draw is the 1 inch by 1/2 inch. So just as a reminder, you can sketch this out, or you can sketch it out to begin with and then apply your dimensions and constraints as you go through. It's whichever method you prefer. If I don't know the dimensions at this point, if I'm at the beginning of a design stage, I could sketch something and then later on apply the dimensions. So if you like that method, you can come back, put the dimension on it, and the part will update. So you guys who are using AutoCAD, this is a little bit different. I'll give you a few examples. The next thing I will draw with specifying the dimension as I draw, which is very similar to the dynamic input, and some of you are familiar with. So you can draw it or sketch it and then apply the constraints as needed. So there we go, the 1/2 inch by 1 inch. I'm going to finish this sketch and I'm going to extrude this next. So moving over to the extrude button, this is the next step. So remember, we're sketching and extruding. I'm going to use the extrude and I'm going to have to specify the distance. So if you look at the drawing specifies that the radius for this arc is 0.63, so that's 0.625 rounded up, and that's the radius. So the diameter of that circle defines the length of that part. So that would be 0.625 or 0.63 times 2. So let me show you how you can do that in Inventor. In Inventor, you can specify that math. You don't have to go back to a calculator. You can type in 0.63. I'm going to use 0.625 times 2. Okay, so it will calculate that for me, and I will get a extrusion there that's 1.25. So just entering the values in the box when you're prompted is a nice little feature in Inventor. So that gives me the start of this the block. So the next thing I want to look at now is adding this little piece right here that's 3/8 of an inch up and 3/8 of an inch wide. So I'm going to rotate and I'm going to sketch on the back side of this part. You could also sketch on the top. I guess it's just, well, let's go ahead and sketch on the top. We'll go to the top view now, and when I create my sketch, I'm going to click on this surface and I'm going to point to it, and now I have this area where I can sketch. This time I'm going to use the rectangle command. I like using the rectangle command in Inventor because it just makes it so much quicker. I don't have to go through and draw each one of the lines, so it's already there. So the little rectangle is 0.38 or 0.375, and then you hit your tab button and 1.25, and there we go. So you can see our geometric constraints are already applied. This is parallel. This is parallel to the this is perpendicular, so those constraints are there. These constraints, if you ever need to look up like the symbols The symbols are always here. These are our geometric constraints, and you'll see those. So if you just hold your pointer over top of it, if you can't figure out what the symbol is when you see it appear, the quickest way to refresh your memory is to go up here and point to it, and you'll see that there's the symbol should be up here, and it's just a quick place to look for that. So I've got this piece here. I want to finish sketch because that's all I needed is this rectangle. If you ever want to, as you're sketching, if you want to just see what's going on in the 3D, you can go to your orbit button right here, or you can click on the cube and it will orient your drawing. So I can just kind of flip this around, or I can use the orbit. By clicking on the orbit, I can then I'm holding down my pointer button, or the left mouse button, and I'm just dragging it around, taking a look at it. So sometimes people like to see what's going on in the next stage when you're in this type of view. So finishing the sketch, we always have to finish that sketch and then go to the extrude. So it automatically located this profile right here. So it just knew that. Remember, you can click on that little arrow and move that up and down, or you specify the distance right here. So I don't know how in the world I just drug that to exactly the dimension I wanted, but that's what I'm looking for, is distance A. So while we're here, look at the directions. So the directions are laid out. That's your default. This would reverse the direction, so you can see what happens when that reverses. It automatically switches into the cut mode because it knows that there's material already there, so it would go into cut. It could split the difference, and you can do an offset dimension. So we just want it to be default. We want to be joining onto the existing piece that we already have, so we're going to hit OK. Now I'm going to go to the circle. So I'm going to sketch here on this view. I'm going into my circle command, and to find the midpoint of that line, the object snaps are already built in, so as you move your cursor over the midpoint of that line, it's automatically going to pick up that midpoint. So I'm going to pick that up, and I'm going to drag over to the end of that line, and that snap automatically clicks on that, so you don't have to type anything. It just automatically happens. Inventor always uses the diameter when it's drawn, so you don't have to switch between radius and diameter. It's just always diameter. So if you look here, I've now got the circle drawn in here, and I want to trim out the bottom part of that circle. So I'm going to go to my trim button, pick on the bottom part of the circle, and there is the arc that I need to extrude back. So I'm going to finish that sketch, and I'm going to go to extrude, and now I need to reverse the direction, and there is the 3/8 automatically pops up, and I'm going to hit OK. So it's got the main part right there, so we're going to build onto this little cube, this little piece right here. So we're going to add the little leg there, start a new sketch. So sketch and extrude, sketch and extrude. So what we're going to do now is draw another rectangle. I'm going to just go back down to my origin point, and I'm going to draw this up. And let's, for this purpose of this exercise, let's just pick a little spot there on the line. I didn't specify the length of that, but I can come back now. Oops, well, I got to pick these two lines. So if I pick this line and this line right here and put that dimension on there, I can then modify that. I sketched it. I didn't constrain it with a dimension as I was, drawing. The vertical line is constrained because I already had that dimension specified. So when I went from this point to this point, it automatically locked this line in at 0.5, and there's really no need for me to dimension that again. So I'm going to click on Finish Sketch and go to Extrude, and this time that extrusion is 0.75. So it's already prompted me on my screen right there, so I can type in 0.75 and hit the enter button, and then finish that part. So breaking that down into just a few basic shapes will get us that part right there. So that's how you join and continue to build sketches and extrusions on Inventor.